All right, let's jump into today's deep dive. We're heading to the Pacific Northwest, folks. Portland, Oregon. Do you know Portland? The city where you can grab a locally roasted coffee, then wander into a shop that sells, like, unicorn-themed taxidermy. And somehow it all works.
Portland definitely has that reputation. It's interesting, though, how it balances that quirkiness with a real dedication to sustainability and a really vibrant art scene. Like, it's not just about being different, right? You really feel a strong sense of community there and a conscious effort to make their city, like, really reflect those
Yeah,
values.
and that Keep Portland Weird motto,
Mm.
it's iconic. But what does that actually mean for people who live there? Like, how does that actually play out in everyday life?
Well, it's more than just like a fun saying on a t-shirt or something. It really is like a whole attitude, a way of life.
Sure.
It encourages people to just be themselves, be creative. Like a good example in Portland, you're way more likely to find like a small independent bookstore than a big chain,
Yeah.
or see someone biking to work instead of being stuck in traffic.
I'm seeing that local focus come up a lot in this overview we've got here. And speaking of local gems, we got to talk about Powell's City of Books. Like
Okay.
a bookstore that takes up an entire city block. That's basically a bookworm's paradise.
Oh, absolutely. Powell is a perfect example of how much Portland loves books and ideas. It's not just buying a book there. It's like getting lost in this world of knowledge, connecting with other people who love books and maybe even finding like a rare first edition or something.
All right. That's going straight on my must-visit list. But before we spend all our time browsing, let's move on to another iconic part of Portland.
The roses. I mean, it's not called the City of Roses for nothing, right?
Oh, yeah. You can't talk about Portland without mentioning the roses. The International Rose Test Garden in Washington Park, it's pretty amazing. Thousands and thousands of roses, every color you can imagine.
Mm.
But it's also like a really important place for horticulture. It's where they test new rose varieties. So you're not just seeing beautiful flowers, you're kind of seeing like botanical history in the making. And right next to that explosion of color, you have the Portland Japanese Garden. It's a totally different kind of beauty, like a place for peace and quiet. It's pretty amazing how they've created those tranquil spaces right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, you see that a lot in Portland, like the urban and the natural world kind of existing side by side. You could
Yeah.
be walking through a busy market and then like 5 minutes later, you're hiking in a forest. It's that mix that makes it so interesting.
Speaking of busy markets, this overview mentions the Pearl District. It used to be an industrial area, but now it's full of art galleries and boutiques and some pretty amazing sounding restaurants.
Yeah, the Pearl District, that's a great example of like urban renewal done right. They've kept that historic feel of the buildings, but they've created a space that feels really modern and lively. And the First Thursday Art Walk is a good example of that. All the galleries open up, there's music in the streets, it turns into a big, like, community art party.
And of course, you can't talk about Portland without talking about the food. This overview raves about the food carts. You can find everything there. Thai, Ethiopian, pretty much anything you can think of.
Yeah. The food cart scene really shows off how diverse and entrepreneurial Portland is. You've got chefs from all over the place bringing their own unique dishes to the streets, creating this incredible mix of flavors. It's like, it's not just grabbing a bite, it's experiencing the city's culture through food.
And obviously, we can't forget about voodoo donuts. This overview describes them as whimsical and outrageous, and I think that's pretty accurate. Like bacon maple bars and donuts with cereal on top.
Mm-hmm.
They're practically daring you to try something new.
Oh, yeah. Voodoo Donuts, it's like an institution in Portland. It definitely
Right.
embodies that keep Portland weird idea, embracing what's different, having a little fun. But beyond all that, they're also passionate about making like really unique and delicious donuts.
So we've covered books, roses, art, and even donuts. And what I'm noticing is that each of these things kind of reflects Portland's personality. This mix of creativity and community and doing things a little differently.
That's a great observation. It's not just about the individual places, but how they all work together to create this sense of place, this unique identity that you just don't find anywhere else. So we've talked about some of Portland's iconic spots, but this overview also dives into some of its lesser known neighborhoods. Like, have you heard of Alberta Street?
Alberta Street? I don't think so. What's that like?
It's known for having this cool bohemian vibe, lots of local art, independent businesses, like think vintage shops, cozy cafes, that kind of thing.
Oh, so it's a little off the beaten path then, like a place to discover something new.
Exactly. Alberta Street is all about that local feel, supporting artists and small businesses, building community connections. It's like a little world within Portland with its own distinct energy.
And speaking of energy, I'm curious to hear more about the Pearl District. We touched on it earlier, but I'm really intrigued by how it went from an industrial zone to this trendy hub.
It's pretty amazing, actually. They've managed to weave the old and the new together in the Pearl District. You'll see beautifully restored warehouses that are now art galleries or high-end boutiques. It's a reminder that Portland respects its history, but it's not afraid to embrace change and move forward.
Yeah, that sense of evolution keeps coming up in this overview. Like, Portland's always reinventing itself while staying true to its roots. And speaking of roots, I gotta say, I'm blown away by Portland's access to nature. We mentioned Forest Park earlier, but it's incredible to think you have this massive urban forest right there in the city.
It's huge. Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest urban forests in the U.S., actually.
Really?
It really shows how much Portland values green spaces. It's not just about having a pretty park, it's about giving people a place to connect with nature, escape the city. And within Forest Park, there's the Wildwood Trail. That's a great way to experience it. It's a pretty challenging hike, but the scenery is amazing.
Oh, so it's not for the faint of heart.
Well, it depends on your fitness level, but it's definitely worth it if you're up for a challenge.
Okay, noted. But for those of us who prefer a more relaxed nature experience, maybe with some panoramic views, what about Mount Tabor Park? This overview mentions it's a volcanic cinder cone. I mean, how often do you find a volcano in the middle of a city?
Right. It's pretty unique. Mount Tabor is a great example of how Portland embraces its natural surroundings. You can hike or jog there, have a picnic, and the views from the top, oh, they're incredible. You can see the whole city, the mountains, even Mount Hood if it's a clear day.
All right, Mount Tabor is officially on my list. But let's switch gears for a bit and get back to, you guessed it, the food. This overview just raves about the food scene, from the diverse food carts to those legendary voodoo donuts.
Portland's food scene is like a reflection of its creativity, its openness to different cultures. It's about pushing boundaries, experimenting with flavors, and you see that everywhere. You've got world-class chefs and passionate food cart owners all contributing to this incredible energy.
I'm definitely excited to check out that food cart scene. It seems like a perfect way to sample a bunch of different cuisines and really get a taste of Portland's eclectic spirit. And of course, we can't talk about Portland food without revisiting those voodoo donuts. What is it about them that makes them so iconic?
Voodoo Donuts is more than just a donut shop. It's an experience. It's about embracing the quirky, the unexpected, and just having fun with food. And yeah, some of their creations are pretty wild, but behind it all, there's a real passion for quality and craftsmanship. They've really tapped into that sense of childlike wonder that we all have.
So it's about more than just the donuts themselves, it's the whole atmosphere.
Exactly. It's an experience.
Got it. Okay, so we've covered neighborhoods, nature, food. Now let's dig into a bit of Portland's history. This overview mentions the Shanghai tunnels, and I'm curious to hear more about their role in the city's past.
Ooh, yeah, the Shanghai tunnels. They're a fascinating part of Portland's underground, literally. There's still debate about what they were used for, but they add a layer of mystery to the city. They're a reminder of a time when Portland was a rough and tumble port town, a side of the city that's not always visible today.
It's like peeling back the layers of a city and discovering these hidden stories. And speaking of connections, I'm struck by how Portland seems to weave together its history, its culture, and its commitment to sustainability. It's not just about preserving the past, but using it to build a better future.
You hit the nail on the head. Portland is all about learning from the past, embracing change, and finding ways to improve. And you can see that forward-thinking attitude in so many things, from its bike-friendly streets to its approach to urban planning.
Okay, so we've covered neighborhoods, nature, food, and even a bit of history. I feel like we're getting a real sense of what makes Portland tick. It's a city that's constantly evolving, embracing its quirks, and trying to make the world a better place.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a city that's both familiar and surprising, a place where you can find comfort in the known, but you're also constantly challenged to explore new things.
It's a unique balance, that's for sure. We've covered a lot of ground in Portland so far, from its quirky neighborhoods to its amazing food scene, but I feel like there's still so much to uncover.
There's always more to discover in Portland. It's one of those cities that keeps surprising you.
This overview really emphasizes that Portland is more than just a place to visit. It's like a whole vibe. They encourage visitors to slow down, really soak it all in, connect with the people, and embrace that keep Portland weird spirit.
It's true, and that spirit is contagious. Like, you can't help but be inspired by it. It makes you want to be more creative, challenge the norm, and see the beauty in the unexpected. And it really fosters a sense of community where it's okay to be yourself, you know?
Yeah, I'm picking up on that. Portland seems like a city that's not afraid to experiment, whether it's with sustainability, urban design, or even just like coming up with crazy donut flavors.
Totally. It's like a giant testing ground for new ideas, a place where people are always pushing boundaries and trying to make the world a little better, a little more interesting.
So for someone who's thinking about visiting Portland, what kind of experience can they expect?
Well, I think they can expect to be surprised, probably delighted, and maybe even challenged a little bit. Portland will definitely push you outside of your comfort zone, but it'll also welcome you with open arms. It's a city that really rewards curiosity.
I have to say, I'm already feeling inspired to book a trip myself. But before we wrap up our Portland deep dive, there's one more thing we need to touch on, and that's its seasonal beauty. This overview mentions how the city transforms throughout the year. Each season brings a totally different experience.
Portland is deeply connected to nature, and you can really see that in how the city changes with the seasons. From the flowers in spring to the fall colors, every time of year has its own unique beauty.
So whether you're into nature, food, art, whatever, it sounds like Portland has something to offer everyone no matter when you visit.
Exactly. It's a city that's constantly evolving, but it always stays true to itself. A place where you can find beauty in unexpected places, be yourself, and be inspired.
Well, it looks like we've reached the end of our deep dive into Portland, Oregon. We've explored so much, its unique culture, its love for the outdoors, its amazing food scene, and its commitment to creating a better world. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty inspired.
It's been a great journey, and I hope our listeners now have a better understanding of what makes Portland so special.
We'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been to Portland? What surprised you the most? And what's on your Portland must-see list? Share your thoughts with us. And until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.